Third time's the charm, and this time the charm is turned into a positively signature sound. Welcome to Ronan Does Music, where today we're looking at the third studio album from my friend Rod and his fellow band members in Lost Magic called Dark Academia. This is their first album under a record label, that being Midwest Gold, and it was made on just a budget of $1,000, but you'd be hard-pressed to find an album from a quote-unquote small band in the scene with not just the production value on this, but the soul. High production value doesn't just always mean airtight instrumentals and perfectly tuned voices. It's the ability to listen to the album and hear every piece of it from start to finish, from Mason's vocals to Rod's drumming, and the combination of Mason and Ian's work on bass and guitar, and just feel like it's quintessential to a band's sound. It sounds good, it feels good, like a 5 Seconds of Summer album. So let's talk about how Dark Academia does just that. I could pick anything on this album to talk about first off, but I think I'll throw my first couple thoughts towards the inspiration and outside sources found on the album. The band has influence from plenty of artists in terms of lyricism and instrumental work, but a song I was listening to that really snapped me out of my casual head nodding was Journey Down a Long Winding Road, which had a very Billy Joel Piano Man inspired chorus specifically, along with some very nice piano inclusions throughout the song overall. I don't know if it was purposely made to sound like that, but the way that Mason's voice kind of floats up and down felt very similar to both the chorus and bridge. Listening to past albums and getting hints of artists like Audioslave, and more specifically their Out of Exile album, or maybe their slow tempo version of a Stone Temple Pilots sort of vibe, it was refreshing to seemingly pick out an element like Billy Joel instead. Speaking of artist influence, the guys have two covers on this album by Billie Eilish and the Beatles respectively, with their cover of Happiness is a Warm Gun specifically feeling not just true to the original version and vision of John Lennon and Paul McCartney, can't speak at all, but it just felt like a breath of fresh air at the same time. It was a new version of a song that feels both core to the original idea and like it is core to Lost Magic's idea and interpretation of it. I've been very vocal about my dislike for the Beatles and their almost automatic designation as one of the best bands of all time, but listening to a song of theirs in a different frame of light like this is very nice. The cover of Love of My Life, while also nice, doesn't quite hit the same beats and steady quality of the other, but it's still a very interesting take, considering usually when you get a rock band doing a cover of a pop song, it kind of lends to the more extreme subgenre stretches of rock or metal. Usually it's a metalcore or deathcore or straight pop punk, more in line with like a Blink-182 or Sum 41 vibe, or similar areas like that, instead of this band's sort of garage rock grunge feeling and vibe put onto a song like that. Other songs on the album, of course, also feel like they've drawn proper power from artists such as the aforementioned rock and grunge heavyweights, but I think that's enough time spent on referencing non-Lost Magic vibes, and we can look at the album itself for its own merits from here on. The band in their scene is quite possibly largely known for their overall measured and lax vocal approach combined with the raucous instrumentals, and that shines through multiple times on the album as per usual, such as on the singles What Gives and Hoping for Mistakes. But I have always found more critical and personal enjoyment, more so personal I would say, in the songs that see adrenaline ticks in both departments, such as the experimental Labyrinth and its simplistic structure that's less like a cigarette drag and more like a quick hit of something harder. Mason's vocals in particular ring through very nicely on this track and allow for a more poignant expression, along with his guitar work in between verses that brings out the more experimental vibes. The intro track, Beware, also pulls off a similar feeling right off the gate on the album's tracklist that gets you up off your feet and ready for the rest of the songs lined up. While I don't know if they go into the studio or just start writing in general with the idea of kind of following a formulaic vibe of, okay, let's get the more like groovy, vibey sound going, or if they specifically try to create different things at different times, who's to say, but they can pull off the fast and the slow with equal power. If you're more interested in the signature slow but not halted energy that the band lends itself more often to, tracks such as Under a Spell pull this off with a sort of polish that cements this band as students of the genre, with the ballad-esque song approach to garage rock with sticky lyrics that paints a clear picture. The stop-and-go effects feel very similar to previous albums, like songs such as Strictly for the Birds, this time with a more confident vocal approach by Mason. Being both the vocalist and guitarist can sometimes overexpose some people, whether it's a small band or one that's on a major label like Roadrunner, but he's able to reel it in and let both parts of his section of Lost Magic shine overall, especially in Under a Spell, as well as a song towards the end of the album such as Guess I'll Be Going, with the latter having a more sort of, I don't know if it's acoustic guitar per se, but an acoustic sound overall. A special treat, and to my knowledge, only the second time in Lost Magic's career so far. As noted on the album's liner notes, one song is written by both Mason and the drummer Rodrigo, that being Cycle of Despair. This song has a different vibe than the others, even without that previous knowledge being known, be it due to the lyrical content straying ever so slightly more into different territory than usual, or maybe the deeper sound overall in terms of the soundscape. Not only is it heavy on lyrics, but it's heavier in the drums in terms of their sound. The bass is much more thick, coming from Ian here. You can just tell that it's a different form of Lost Magic's approach than usual. You get these deep introspective lyrics such as, "Seems like I'm on trial, but I'm not gonna break," or "My heart and soul long for anonymity, I'm settling myself free to put an ease to my consciousness." This sort of lyrical territory isn't new to Lost Magic, but it does sound ever so slightly different, be it in part due to just having two writers or having more of an influence in general from Rodrigo. Top to bottom, as you would expect from a band now 3 albums deep into their career, this is a pure star-studded show of what they've done so far. Like I've said a few times here overall, and of course in my other 2 reviews I've done for the band, this album has their more slow forms. It's got your ballads, it's got your little almost love songs, but it also has that familiar tick of energy. Past albums have had stuff like Stolen Valor, this one has Labyrinth. And in a rare case, this album manages to pull off the difficult task, like I just said, of improving on the band's sound and identity for the 3rd album in a row with steady hit after steady hit. The experiments and different angles are paying off. The core ideas are still here, and the group has undeniably found a steady form of rock that not only sounds good, but gives them an identifiable feeling that manages to separate them from the majority of rock acts, not just within West Michigan, but within, and I hate using this term, but it's easy to identify, smaller bands. I love listening to new bands. I love listening to people who come from just a shitty dive bar, not saying this band, but just like in general, and bands that you would have never heard before. I love sitting in and listening to their music, but oftentimes you just get this sort of like copy and paste feeling. If it's a hard rock or metalcore band, every single song seems to sound like Memphis Mayfire or Starset or Breaking Benjamin. Sometimes you get vibes that are similar to just like a poor man's Metallica or a Linkin Park or Stone Temple Pilots. But these guys, while still having a very strong local following, have not let themselves fall too deep into the hole of just sounding like another band from the rock scene. They have their feeling, they have their vibe, and they're able to take that idea and energy and expand it into something purely their own instead of falling into traps. With covers included, it has me hoping for further looks outside of their usual space. Like, hey, who knows, maybe next time we'll get a cover from the likes of Chapel Roan. Who knows? I cannot wait to see what's next for them, with the future being wide open. So, for these reasons, Dark Academia by Lost Magic is their best album so far, and it gets an 8.2 out of 10. And that's my review. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments section below. Are you a fan of Lost Magic? Are you a fan of West Michigan rock? Check these guys out down at the links down in the description below. Hope you're having a good day. Hope you're staying hydrated. I'll see you next time.